Hi everyone, I'm Tom MacArthur, a scouting enthusiast.
And I'm Marcia Hunt, Development Director for the Inland Northwest Council.
What you're about to see is a recording of a very special virtual event, Mission Scouting, an evening with an astronaut.
While the live event is past, the need for fundraising is not. The text to give number is still live. We really need your contributions. Please enjoy the show and consider giving.
Believe me, you'll be glad you did. Good evening and welcome to live event Mission Scouting, an evening with an astronaut. I'm Tom MacArthur, your host for this evening of celebration and fundraising.
And I'm Marcia Hunt, Development Director for the Inland Northwest Council. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tom, I understand this is not your first scouting mission.
Well, no, that's accurate. I'm proud to say I'm an Eagle Scout and a unit commissioner in my professional life. I've been a television news reporter, an anchor, a congressional press secretary, a director at Spokane's legendary Davenport Hotel.
I'm impressed. Well, welcome to the Inland Northwest Council and Mission Scouting, Tom. A special thank you to Good Deeds Mortgage in Pullman, Washington for making this event possible through our generous donation. The year 2020 has certainly brought a unique twist to life, to families, and of course to scouting. But as scouts always do, we use what we have to adapt. Tonight we will lift off together to achieve Mission Scouting with council leaders, volunteers, parents, and scouts, and of course with Colonel Michael Fossum, astronaut and Eagle Scout.
Tonight's event is a key part of Inland Northwest Council's financial campaign. As most of you know, council and district events have been postponed or canceled this year because of the coronavirus disease pandemic, causing a financial strain to the council. Well, tonight we focus on the importance of scouting, the goodness of scouting, as we celebrate scouting with one of our own, Eagle Scout astronaut, Michael Fossum. We have a mascot who will be peeking in on us now and again during our program tonight, so we thought it well to introduce you now in case you're wondering what this animal is and why he keeps appearing in our program. Well, this is our resident badger, and we can't just call a plain vanilla badger. We have to have a scouting name for it, and so we call it our merit badger. We had to give it a good scout name, so merit badger it is. Join us in bridging the financial gap tonight. Together we plan to turn that around, but we'll get to that later. Right now, let's hear from an important member of our community. Our first guest this evening is Shelley O'Quinn. Shelley's the Chief Executive Officer of Innovia Foundation. She's a mom of 2 sons and a big fan of scouting, so please welcome Shelley O'Quinn.
Good evening. I'm Shelley O'Quinn, CEO of Innovia Foundation, your community foundation serving Eastern Washington and North Idaho. Thank you for joining us tonight for this fundraising event, Mission Scouting, an evening with an astronaut. We have a great evening in store for you with a fantastic program. You may be surprised to find out that I was a Boy Scout, an Explorer Scout to be exact. Growing up, I always thought I wanted to be a police officer. I had dreams of joining the Boston Mounted Patrol. These dreams, however, were more grounded in my love for horses than the realities of law enforcement. But that was something I wouldn't figure out until I joined the Spokane Police Department's Explorer Scout program when I was in high school. I spent 4 years volunteering over 2,000 hours, gaining an appreciation for the work of our uniformed officers. It was an incredible experience that I credit with putting me on the path to where I am today. I gained confidence in myself, learned valuable leadership skills, and ultimately figured out that I had no desire to be a police officer, even if I loved my volunteer time. Scouting changed my life and continues to be an investment in the lives of our youth and leaders of tomorrow. COVID-19 has had an impact on all of us, our communities, families, businesses, nonprofits, and scouting. We are all living a new reality and facing challenging situations, from homeschooling and lack of childcare, to working from home, to financial struggles, or simply the chaos of a pandemic. But we are all in this together. And I would argue that in this time of COVID and way too much screen time, we need scouting now more than ever. Tonight we have an opportunity to be inspired. We will lift off together to achieve the mission of scouting with Michael Fossum, astronaut, with our council leaders, volunteers, parents, and most importantly, our youth. The mission of the Boy Scouts of America is to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and Law. Help us fill our mission and achieve our goal of $100,000 in donations by December 31st. Scouting has been around for over 100 years. We are here to stay, and you can help. Please enjoy your evening and consider how you can support Scouting and change a life in a youth today. Have a great evening.
Thanks so much, Shelley, for sharing your story with us tonight. Now, it's time for all of you to get out your cell phones. Appearing on your screen is the information to text to give. It's really easy. Just text the number 1-855-575-7888 and then enter 129633 in the message box. You'll receive a link to the donor box. Touch that link and you'll be directed on how to give. You will have made a difference in the futures of youth right here in the Inland Northwest. If you wish to give by check or by phone to your credit card, please call the Scout office. That number, 509-325-4562.
Please take a moment and consider a donation to Scouting. No amount is too little. Support your local council today.
On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, and to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight.
I have a little sticky note on top of my mirror in my bedroom saying, "Imagine if you could change the world just a little." That's because of Scouts.
Scouting and the BSA program as a whole have taught me a lot of personality traits and qualities in a good citizen and in a good person that you want around in the workplace or just as a community member.
The easiest way I can see of making a change is helping kids develop into leaders so that they may change the world in the future for the better. We need more leaders like what Scouts produces today more than ever.
Scouting teaches a lot of basic principles, a lot of basic ideals on how to handle yourself, how to handle other people, how to lead if such need, how to react in an emergency situation, how to adapt and overcome.
I did my Eagle project actually this last weekend. I live on Lake Pend Oreille, so I go boating all the time on the beaches and stuff, and they're just filled of trash. So I got 30 volunteers to go with me, and we went on boats and cleaned up all the trash, filled up pretty much like 3 trucks full of trash. I want to make an impact in our world, and hopefully going to college and stuff, I can go into environmental stuff because Scouts helped me find that.
I mean, I've always wanted to take care of the environment in some way or another.
I really like it because I get to experience stuff that I've never thought I'd be able to do, such as like welding, scuba diving, and zip lining. And it gets me outside more than if I were just to play video games all day.
That's my favorite part.
Which is your favorite part?
Gaga ball. Just have like a court, and then there's like a kickball. There's so many people just hitting it everywhere.
Playing games and camping, making new friends.
Every year we do a popcorn selling, and it gets me more socially active, talking to strangers and stuff like that.
I've grown so much as a person this last year, 2 years. I think it's a great opportunity to help people grow and become who they think they are.
My old Scoutmaster died this year. His name was Mr. Ellison. His son and I were friends in the troop. We're still friends today. When I heard the news that Mr. Ellison had passed, I was right back at Scout camp with him in my mind, hearing his chuckle and smelling campfire smoke and seeing his hand up in the air with a Scout sign urging us to settle down because he had something important to say. His passing caused me to think a lot about Scouting that day and the friendships and knowledge that I treasure still. Simple things like being able to light up a campfire with a single match, tie up a boat with a reliable knot, and cook an entire meal in a piece of aluminum foil. Sound familiar? More complicated things, though, too, like respect, peer pressure, decision-making, and leadership. Scouting made me a better person for life. On my honor, I will do my best. That's life powered by Scouting. Scouting delivers exactly what parents are asking for during this pandemic, Now more than ever, youth need the outdoors and the fresh air away from their phones, games, computers, and TVs.
While you're texting, please enjoy some thoughts from a few of our remarkable volunteers about their relationships with Scouting.
I was just participating in an activity early on when my son was a Cub Scout, and I remember doing this activity, and one of the kids was acting up, and offhandedly I talked to one of the other Scout leaders, and I said, "How in the world do you guys do this? You signed up for this. I'm here because of my kid." And he kind of took me aside and he goes, "You might be the only responsible adult that this kid interfaces with all day today." And that hit me. That hit me really hard.
The world has changed so much. The world is so fast-paced, and Scouting brings us back down. It brings us back to reality and why we are here.
They have information from all different sources that we as parents really have very little if no control over. So having a code that they live by and can recite and understand and work together to try to uphold is very important.
The values that we teach are timeless.
How to be a good citizen, how to be a good member of society, a work ethic. Being a leader means being a part of community and being admirable. And so the traits that Scouting teaches you are that of a leader.
I've heard that Scouting is old and antiquated and no longer relevant, and I argue 100% the opposite.
It's not your grandpa's version of Scouting anymore, right? We've seen the introduction of STEM, so it's not just, hey, we're going out in the woods and starting a campfire and whittling sticks anymore, right? I mean, we're building robots and racing them across the floor. It's a very different environment than it was 50 years ago.
These kids today need more time away from the screens. They need more time in the community. They need more time to be leaders within their peer groups.
A lot of times I will pick camping spots with no cell service, and I'll do it for the fact to get all the kids away from their devices and be kids, talk with one another, experience, life around other people and learn.
I think it's good to tell our kids at that young age that they should have goals, that they should have something to aspire to. And it was good to challenge them with those things at a young age, instead of all of a sudden being 18, 19, 20 years old and waking up one day and just seeing all of these huge challenges kind of fall in on them. Start them off early. Give them some things to give them some successes early on.
It's rewarding seeing the girls when they first start and seeing how they excel and become better.
I think confidence is built by doing things that you might not otherwise feel comfortable doing. And Scouts in general does a lot for building a kid's confidence and really growing as a human being.
I couldn't be more proud of how she's grown into being a leader. She didn't think she had it in her, but we always knew that she did, and then to watch her be able to go and do this on her own has been a pretty amazing thing to watch over the last year and a half.
Watching our Scouts grow and develop within our oath and law is extremely rewarding, and you see the kids take it in their own direction, and they get their own understanding and feeling and belief from it.
We all come together. We're all wearing this uniform, and we all have political differences and religious differences and all the rest of it. And yet, when push comes to shove, we've got each other's backs. I expected to learn some leadership skills. I expected to learn, how to have fun or to go out and have an adventure or those types of things. That's what I got. What I didn't realize was that I was going to find the very best friends I've ever had in my life wearing this uniform.
Good evening, I'm Stacy Coles, president of Coles Publishing. Scouting did 3 enormous things for me. I learned a huge number of outdoor skills. Applying them gave me great self-confidence, and teaching them gave me leadership skills that I still use today. Not every troop canoes the Lochsaw River, a legendary Class 4 ride, but mine did. When I was 11, I thought I was going to die every 20 minutes as we hit roaring whitewater. When I was 16, I was the fearless leader who led the trip. Scouts taught me how to pack gear so it's waterproof, how to lash it into a boat with knots that stay put when you want them to, and untie quickly when you need them to. I learned first aid and I used it to deal with the usual sprained ankles, knife accidents, and scrapes that kids suffer in the field. I learned how to read a map and set a course, how to plan and cook a menu for 8 people for 8 days in the wilderness, how to pack the 10 essentials, and how to teach younger kids those same skills. I learned to praise in public, critique in private. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. Scouts taught me the thrill of taking on new challenges and that I was much more capable of what I gave myself credit for. I still compare tough days at the office to those river trips and think, wow, I made it through that. I can make it through anything. Kids everywhere most need to learn resilience, grit, and character. And that's exactly what Scouts delivers. So if you agree we need more leaders with resilience, grit, and good values, please join me in supporting the cause. We're going through our own version of the lock saw at the moment, and we sure could use your help.
Thank you, Stacy. Good to hear your stories about Scouting. I am constantly reminded what a fantastic program Scouting is. Supporting Scouting today helps build leaders for tomorrow, and it gives back so much to the volunteers who make it happen. Now, let's hear from the president of the Inland Northwest Council, Rustin Hall. Rustin is a principal and CEO of ALSC Architects. He's had various volunteer roles over the years in Scouting, including as current president of our Inland Northwest Council, Boy Scouts of America. Please give a warm welcome to Rustin Hall.
My name is Rustin Hall. I'm the president CEO of ALSC Architects. Proud husband of wife Linda and proud father of 3 adult boys that have come through the Scouting program. I also have the pleasure and the honor of serving as the current chairman of the board for the executive committee for Boy Scouts. I've been a scouter for 51 years now. I was shy, quiet, introverted as a child. The leadership, the character building that's built into this program still today and will continue on into the future has a tendency to sort of gel over time. And all of a sudden it shows up, and guess what? You're the president of a council. You're leading a company. You're leading your family. It's amazing how it just gets into the fabric of your person at a very young age. We have to keep up with the current world to keep their interest, to keep their enthusiasm, and to prepare them to lead. They have to be current. They cannot rely on the things that we used to do, 50, 60, 100 years ago. The fundamentals of leadership haven't changed that much, but how we apply, teach, and give them the experiences is different on a regular basis and constantly improving. We're continually reinventing what Scouting means in our society and in our kids, and I get to lead that process and to tap these great minds that are out there. We have over 50 board members. We draw those ideas together. Again, those nuggets surface, and it's like, that's what we're going to do. And it's been just an amazing honor to get to do that. The biggest issue that we found is we can no longer gather safety for the time being and probably for the extended future. We have to rethink and rewire the same program delivered in a completely different way. We had an amazing example of that this summer. We had over 700 Scouts in the Boy Scout program come to our summer camps. We were one of a handful of councils in the entire country. Out of 253 councils, not one Scout got COVID. And we did that by managing it in pods. And our Scouts, our volunteers, our staff went way out of their way to make sure we could still deliver this program during a pandemic. The health district said, you're ahead of us in how you're thinking about doing these kinds of things. And they allowed us to do that. We followed every CDC guideline there was, applied the Scout safety and training and all that on top of that, got some of the best comments we have ever gotten from Scoutmasters visiting us from all over the country, because again, if you can't have camp in your state, come to Washington, come to our camps. And they did. And some of the letters we got were unbelievable, saying, this is one of the best camps I've ever been to. We were able to pivot, to retrain, to recognize the need, get creative out of the box thinking, and still deliver this program in a whole new way.
Thank you, Rustin. We're grateful for your service, especially in this time of COVID. Next up, we'll have a brief word from the Inland Northwest Council's Scout Executive. Darren Nicholson became the Assistant Scout Executive for the Inland Northwest Council on August 1st, 2019. Darren has a vast history in scouting management, and we're so lucky to have him. He has a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice and Police Services, and he's a 24-year U.S. Air Force veteran. Darren, thank you for your service. But he doesn't just talk the talk. Darren has 35 years of grassroots experience, including Cub Master, Scout Master, Crew Advisor, Post Advisor, Committee Chair, District Friends of Scouting Chair, and Commissioner Service, including Council Commissioner. He is an Arrow of Light and an Eagle Scout holder with many other Scout and military awards. Please welcome Darren Nicholson.
Good evening, Scouts, families, and leaders. I'm Darren Nicholson, and I am the Assistant Scout Executive for the Inland Northwest Council. And I've been passionate about Scouting for more than 35 years. I'm glad to see that all of you are as enthusiastic as I am about the importance of Scouting in our world today. Yes, Scouting has taken some hits. However, the Inland Northwest Council is resilient and perhaps more relevant and significant than ever before. Just look at the assets we have in this council: Camp Coles, Camp Easton, and Camp Grizzly, not to mention the great outdoors right here in our area. And we have you, the wonderful volunteers and leaders that put the program in action. This has been quite the year. Scouting during COVID has been challenging, but Scouting is happening. Scouts are meeting via Zoom, camping, safely gathering, and finding activities that fit with our present situation. Be assured that we practice COVID safety in addition to the other safety protocols that keep youth and adults secure. Youth protection training, background checks, 2-deep leadership, and the buddy system. Scouting is safer than ever before. Our mission to deliver the nation's foremost program of youth development and values-based leadership training has stood the test of time for more than 100 years. It continues to provide its value every day. As so many have said tonight, there is immeasurable worth in what Scouting does for our youth, for our communities, and for America. Now more than ever, we need this program. And more than ever, we need your support. Yes, Scouting has taken some hits, but with your financial help, Scouting will continue far into the future. Thank you.
Thank you for those wise words, Darren. Did you know that 50% of the income to run the council comes from camping and activities? The other 50% comes from product sales like popcorn and camp cards, Friends of Scouting, and special events. It takes all of the funding streams to make Scouting happen. We cannot do it without you. So please consider following the text to give prompt and make a donation today.
Scouting has a proven track record of shaping youth into people of outstanding character, people who understand the meaning of accountability and the importance of servant leadership.
Tom, did you know Scouting's leadership model created great leaders?
Yes, I've heard about a very few.
Well, let's start with Philo Farnsworth. He was the inventor of modern television and an Eagle Scout in 1932. We have famous athletes, Hank Aaron, Willie Banks, both Eagle Scouts. Famous newscaster, Walter Cronkite, and famous reporter and anchor, Tom MacArthur, with us today. Entertainers, Jimmy Buffett, Andy Griffith, Mike Rowe, Steven Spielberg, George Strait, John Wayne, my favorite, and a president, Gerald Ford. Astronauts, 17 Eagle Scouts became astronauts. Neil Armstrong, first man to walk on the moon, stating the Eagle has landed. And Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon, and of course, our own speaker, Michael Fossum. Wow, truly amazing. Scouting gave them the confidence to shoot for the moon. No pun intended.
No pun taken. But Marcia, I do have a space pun if you'd like to hear it.
I would love to hear it.
Okay, here it is. What do astronauts use to pay for their coffee in space? Any idea? Okay.
I don't think so.
What do astronauts use to pay for their coffee in space? Starbucks. There's a knee slapper, isn't it? Well, Scouting is about fun, friendship, and activities, but I have a favorite saying that the thing is not the thing. Look behind the fun, friendship, and activities of Scouting program, and you'll find the heart of it, the leadership development. One doesn't need to look far to find great leaders today who came up through the Scouting program. We've just heard the names of many of them. Our special guest this evening is one of these special people. He was born in South Dakota the year Elvis Presley hit #1 with All Shook Up. His family moved to Texas, where he went to school and joined Scouting. He is an Eagle Scout who slept under the stars at Scout Camp and grew up to walk among them in space. He's a retired United States Air Force colonel who served as a flight test engineer on the F-16 test squadron at Edwards Air Force Base. Get this, he has logged more than 2,000 hours in 35 different aircraft. He's a veteran of 3 space flights, twice aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery and once aboard the Russian Soyuz that brought him to 6 months aboard the International Space Station. He has logged more than 194 days in space, including more than 48 hours in 7 spacewalks. Our guest today, Chief Operating Officer at his alma mater, Texas A&M University at Galveston, where he is now a Scoutmaster. Please join me in giving a warm Scouting family welcome to our special guest this evening, Astronaut Michael Fossum.
Howdy, my name's Mike Fossum, and I'm so excited to be with you tonight to be part of this big event. It's really a celebration of Scouting and thanking all of our supporters for the Scouting program. You know, I'm really going to talk about, for me, my personal journey following the Scouting trail to the ultimate high adventure. Obviously, you know, I'm a retired NASA astronaut and I lived my dream. But this is a Scouting event too, and I was kind of torn. Should I wear my uniform or should I wear my astronaut jacket? And so I just wanted to show everybody that I'm actually wearing both. So I've got my uniform on right now too. We're going to talk a little bit about my journey and then how that led me to the stars, and then really going to close up by focusing, you know, on the value of the Scouting program and what it really means. Well, first of all, I want to introduce you to my brothers. Most of you already know the little guy on the left because that's youngest brother Terry. And then there's Greg on the far right, and we call him the normal one out of the 3 of us. So, you know, and we grew up together, and you know, and we all grew up to be Eagle Scouts and went on to be very, you know, successful in our own ways. You know, and so I just want to brag on all of my brothers before we go on. Then I'd like to introduce my family. When you're an astronaut, you get to take cool family photos like this. And so, you know, introduced to my wife on the right, and then we were blessed with 4 children, a daughter and then 3 sons. And all of the boys went into Scouting and rose through the ranks, and all actually became Eagle Scouts. But just to give you an idea how old this picture is, that cute little guy on the bottom right is just about to finish his engineering degree at Texas A&M University. For me, and then for my brothers behind me, Scouting was a huge part of our life. It was a simpler time in the 60s in a lot of ways, perhaps, where our mom was the den mother. It wasn't a den leader then because all of them were moms. And this was our little neighborhood group in Pack 60, our den. And my brother Greg was too young to be in Cub Scouting at this particular point, and he wanted to be part of it, so Mom made him a mascot uniform, just a plain blue shirt and a yellow neckerchief. And we enjoyed all the stuff that Cub Scouting had, and of course the Pinewood Derby was a big thing back then, you know, just like it is today. It's a lot of fun. And back then, just as today, you can probably notice a little extra smile of satisfaction and pride on my father as his car, our car, you know, won a trophy at my first Pinewood Derby race. After graduating from Cub Scouts into Boy Scouts, where a lot more of the real adventure begins, and I really enjoyed that, you know, having the campouts and the competitions, and here's my guys, you know, competing in a camporee with Troop 7, my home troop, and of course the highlight of every year was going to summer camp. And my imagination was how perfect things were and beautiful and disciplined. And I remember talking to, many years later when I was an adult leader in scouting, reminiscing with my scoutmaster and how things had changed so much because we had it all perfect and it was beautiful and disciplined, and man, it's so and he kept listening and he says, Mike, I hear what you're saying. Hang on a minute. And he walked back into his back of the house and he came out with this dusty scrapbook and he flipped it open to this picture right here. And that ragtag bunch was my troop with mismatched pieces or no uniforms, et cetera, and I had to really point out it wasn't as idealistic as I remembered. But to me, it was still just heaven being active in scouting. My troop used mostly military surplus equipment because that's all we could afford. These were either probably Korean War surplus tents back then, big Army tents, and we could get a whole patrol in one tent, and that was pretty cool. When I got a little bit older, I looked forward to serving on the camp staff, and I did that. And I'll guarantee you cannot find me in this picture. I'll help you out a little bit. Yeah, folks, that actually is me right there, and that's not a wig. I kind of went feral in the summers. And hey, that's what being at scout camp's all about, especially when you're living out there all summer. What I really enjoyed in scouting, though, was the opportunity to do the high adventure kind of trips. During my days as a scout, the first really big adventure trip was to do a week-long canoeing trip on the Guadalupe River in Texas. It was 64 miles along the river, shooting whitewater rapids, yes, in those big Aluma craft. Battle cruiser, summer camp canoes. They got beat up a little bit, but it was just a great adventure. Later, I was very fortunate to go to Philmont and climb to the top of Mount Baldy. This is oftentimes called the highest mountain in scouting, 12,441 feet up. And what a joy it is to lead a bunch of guys up there to reach the top of that and look down from where we've come in the lowlands below. I've also been fortunate to make a number of trips to the boundary waters on the Minnesota-Canada border and take guys on a 10-day trips up into the wilderness where everything we have is in our canoes and on our backs when we're portaging up there. To really just sample a little bit of God's creation in the wilderness like that. And I've made one trip actually to the Florida Sea Base, the BSA Sea Base that's located in the Florida Keys, where we lived on a sailing ship for a week, and snorkeling on the coral reefs, and just having a ball, because that's what the guys wanted to do. Not my idea of high adventure, but that's what they wanted to do, and really the trip is for them. In a lot of ways, scouting gave me the confidence to pursue my goals and prepare me for leadership in all kinds of ways. When I graduated from high school and went on to college, I joined the Corps of Cadets at Texas A&M University, and I rose to be the leader of my cadet squadron, we call it, sitting there. I was in the ROTC program, so when I graduated with my mechanical engineering from A&M, I went on to the Air Force. And I had a number of different jobs in the Air Force, but the one that I really enjoyed the most was doing flight test. I graduated from the Air Force Test Pilot School as a flight test engineer, and I had the opportunity to help fly fast and break things in supersonic aircraft like this F-16, and I absolutely loved it. But as I was pursuing that goal, going to graduate school and then going to test pilot school and striving to be number one, the best that I could possibly be, I was really reaching for a bigger goal. And Boy Scouting helped prepare me for the ultimate high adventures. After a number of years of applying for the astronaut job, I was finally selected as a NASA astronaut, and was fortunate to fly on 2 space shuttle missions. As an engineer at NASA before that, I helped design the International Space Station. And then as an astronaut, I got to help build it. And I did spacewalks on my 2 shuttle flights to help put the pieces together. It was an amazing adventure. Of course, while we're up there, my ties to A&M are strong, and I had to take the Aggie flag and show the colors. But it was really about being serious and getting the job done. Stepping outside the space station, 250 miles above the ground, going 17,500 miles per hour was just outrageous. In fact, I would say it's probably the most outrageous thing that humans can do. Living, working on the outside of that space station with a job to do, and you can't really stop and think about what you're doing right now. Although being on the end of this stick, and really a wobbly thing, testing its stability as part of the work that we were doing on that particular mission was great. And and really, when I stepped out of the airlock for the very first time, it was horrifying. It was just hanging there on the edge of the space station, just looking at this space station suspended in space. And then it would look very different from training, which we did in the water. And in the water, you've got there's this steel structures that are holding the space station mock-ups, and there's a concrete floor down below, a bottom to the pool. Well, in space, there's none of that stuff, and there's none of those scuba divers that are there to help keep you safe. It's just us. And I look at this space station. Down here at the end was a space shuttle dangling off the end. That was my ride to and from space. That led my eyes down, and I looked down. And folks, that's a mistake. And I suddenly had this gripping fear as I went up to look at my safety tether, this very thin cable that was connecting me to the space station. And all of a sudden, I'm at Philmont Scout Ranch, and I am rappelling off a sheer rappel off of Steamboat Rock. And I was trying to get up the nerve to back over the lip. And I'm looking at that little skinny rope, and I'm looking down at the rocks, which seemed like hundreds of feet below, thinking, I'm going to die. And I finally got up the courage, and I went over the edge, and the rope held. So there I am in space, and I'm looking at this steel cable, and I suddenly remembered that feeling. And I said, it's okay, Mike. You've been here before. It's all going to work out. And so I eased my death grip on the handrail and went on to getting the job done on the station, both doing some new assembly and installation of new things, repairing some things on the space station, and things like this, where I was riding the robot arm from the cargo bay of the shuttle to install a new scientific experiment on the outside of the space station. Well, after 2 space shuttle missions, and those were great. You do very hard, intense training for about a year, and the mission lasts 2 weeks. And after that, you come home, you have a welcome home party in the neighborhood, and you kind of get on with your life. Well, the boss asked me to do something very different after that. Wanted me to go to the space station, but this time was going to be very different. This time wouldn't be a 2-week mission. It would be a 6-month mission, and I would not be launching on the shuttle. I would be launching on a Soyuz spacecraft. So I was the commander of Space Station Expedition 29. This is my whole crew pictured here. And the crew actually went to space 3 at a time in the Russian Soyuz spacecraft. So I had to train on a new vehicle, the Russian spacecraft, and I had to learn Russian in order to do it. Folks, that was the hardest thing I've done in my life. But it all worked out. For 2.5 years of training, I was out of the country about half the time. Part of the time, a large part of that time, I was in Russia, where we're pictured here in front of our Soyuz spacecraft simulator. In the middle is Sergei Volkov, a Russian cosmonaut. He was our Soyuz commander. On the left is Satoshi Furukawa. He was a rookie Japanese astronaut, and I always love to fly with rookies because everything is new and they're excited about it. Sergei, to my great benefit, was the first second-generation space flyer. His father was a cosmonaut. So, and his dad told him at a young age he needed to learn English because it was going to be really important to him someday. So it was really great training with these guys. After our training was over, we finally transitioned to the actual, the ceremony part of the launch preparations. And that's one of the great things about flying with the Russians, because their traditions and ceremonies were all so rich and very different from what our traditions were like. Here we are, this is shortly before we left the Moscow region of Russia to go to the launch complex, which is actually located in the country of Kazakhstan. at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. But we're in Moscow here. We're actually on Red Square at St. Basil's Cathedral behind us. And the flowers we're holding in our hands, we're about to put on the graves of the Soviet space pioneers who were interred in the walls of the Kremlin just in front of us. So it was really neat taking part in those traditions. A few weeks later, it's time for us to go. We've been through a 2-week quarantine, something that's become a lot more familiar to all of us in the last year. We're launching at about 1:30 in the morning in June of 2011. The launch pad that we're launching from here is the same one that Yuri Gagarin launched from when he became the first human in space in April of 1961. See, the Russians don't throw anything away. It's 20 liquid-fueled engines pushing us off the pad. Once we got up to space, it was time to get to work. And I'm actually going to show a video in a minute of what it was like to live and work in space, but there was so much to do up there, and it was great to live up there for a period of time. The weeks were incredibly busy. Monday through Friday were an absolute blur because you're living at work and et cetera. But when you had free time, and usually the weekends we have some downtime, what I really loved to do more than anything was look out the windows. This cluster of windows was actually fairly new on the space station. It had been added not long before I got there. And you just love to look and watch the world. But there's actually something wrong with this picture because that cluster of windows is actually not located on the top of the space station. It's located on the bottom of the space station. And so you have to look up in order to look down, if that makes any sense. And it does when you're up there. But the beauty of this, there are other windows that look down at the Earth going by, but it's going by at 5 miles a second. And, and so you don't get to see the horizon. And being able to see the horizon out of these 6 side windows is incredible because of what you can see. Views like this. This is a photo I took of the Aurora Australis, or the Southern Lights, in the Indian Ocean west of Australia. Our Soyuz spacecraft is in the foreground. Behind is the Soyuz, a Russian Progress cargo ship. But that green is the Aurora. Now, I had seen it on my first trip to the Boundary Waters on a Boy Scout trip many, many years below. I'd seen it from below to see that rippling river of green, but to see it from above was just stunning. The green, and then there's red that even stretched up above it all the way to our altitude. I could talk about it all day long, but let me show you what it's really like to live and fly in space, living on the space station. So after 2.5 years, we're getting ready for launch. We're at Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. We're suiting up with our families, including Terry, on the other side of the glass. And then we walk out to report into the big Russian space boss. 3 hours later, those 20 liquid-fueled engines come to life, and we're off of the pad. Now, it's actually really tight. That's me in the corner doing a Boy Scout salute on my side of the Soyuz. You're really hip to hip and elbow to elbow in the Soyuz spacecraft. 2 days later, we're coming into dock to the space station. And it was, after lots of training, it was fully automatic, but you train for the emergency day, right? So we come into dock, we check the pressure seals, and then we're ready to open the hatch and come aboard to join the senior crew that was already on board. After the quick greetings, we did a video conference with our families who were in Moscow, mission control by that point. And soon after that, it was time to get to work on over 200 different scientific experiments, as well as maintaining our own health and the systems of the space station. A lot of work that we did in the first month and a half, though, was getting ready for the last shuttle flight. You see it through the window there. So we were there for STS-135, the last space shuttle flight. And while they were there, my buddy Ron Guerin and I suited up for our 4th spacewalk together, installing some things and doing some repairs to the space station. Another 6.5 hours outside. We got it done safely and got back in. It was actually very different once that shuttle left because we knew we had seen the end of an era. It was over. But we had work to do. We're drawing blood from each other, hair, skin, saliva, urine, you name it, all for the sake of science. We had the first humanoid robot in space. He's the one on the left. A lot of different plant growth experiments, etc. And that's how you exercise, with a harness and bungees to hold you to the treadmill. And that's how you bathe. Soapy water and a washcloth for 6 months, and I slept in a sleeping bag for 6 months that was tied to the wall of my sleep quarters. Keeping the systems going on the station were important too. The systems to clean the air, recycle the water back into drinking water, etc. Clean the carbon dioxide out of our air, generate oxygen and things like that. But it wasn't all work and no play. There was time to have some fun up there. Now, Satoshi played a lot of baseball when he was a kid, and he got so good with it in space that he could pitch the ball and beat it to the batter's box. Batter up, Satoshi. After a little more practice, he got so good he could even field his own hits. What do you think about that? You know, people talk about floating in space, but it's really not floating in space. You're flying. You just grab onto something and you go flying through the station. You just try not to hit anything expensive. If you squirt a little water out of your drink bag, the surface tension makes it form a perfect sphere. The station's actually a pretty big place on the inside. It's about the size of 12 school buses or the internal volume of a 747. Back to that free time. I loved setting up for night photography in that cupola, that cluster of windows. It was so exciting. This is actually individual photos that have been taken and strung together to make a false video here. I can't describe to you what it's like to fly over Japan at night and see the squid fishing fleet offshore, but with this, I can show it to you. Of course, we also dealt with the mundane, like cutting each other's hair up there, and you could tell who the good barber was. He was the one with a bad haircut. Finally, it was time to hand over command to Dan Burbank and his guys, and we got back into our Soyuz spacecraft with about 2 pounds of personal items. For me, that was mostly scouting things and A&M things, frankly. That's parts of our ship burning up on reentry. We landed under a parachute 2 days before Thanksgiving in 2011 on the steppes of Kazakhstan in the pre-dawn light with blowing snow. They get us out of the spacecraft and they put us in these chairs and they start piling blankets and everything on us like they were afraid we were going to get cold. Folks, we weren't going to get cold. We had just ridden home in a meteor. Yeah, that's our spaceship. That's the entire thing that returned to the ground. And then there's a picture shortly after landing. After a helicopter ride, we did the official funny hat welcome home ceremony, whatever that was. 2 days later, or actually 24 hours later, the NASA airplane landed me in Houston, where my family was waiting the day before Thanksgiving for a great, great reunion. What do y'all think? Does that look like a good high adventure trip or what? Oh, absolutely. I do want to say though, you know, through it all, through my adventures, and I've had a lot of them, all of my space missions too, my scout buddies came with me. These are my best friends from scouting that we grew up together. We were actually, the 4 of us were in 3 different Boy Scout troops, but we were very active in the Order of the Arrow together and served on camp staff together. And we were buddies forever. And so I took pictures of them with me to put them up in that window so they could have a little souvenir of my trip. I took a lot of Eagle badges, both big ones. I took my Eagle medal and Eagle medals for my sons. Things like that. Another good scouting connection from space was I was a scoutmaster for 12 and a half years. I was a scoutmaster, you know, during my space station mission. And I did the first Scoutmasters Conference from space with Joel Huff here. He is at a scout camp in Texas, and I'm on the phone with him through a data link where to actually do his Scoutmasters Conference. And I did one with every one of my 35 boys in my troop from space. That was just a cool way that I could share the share the adventure with my guys. All in all, it was just a great adventure to be able to fly in space, to live that childhood dream, you know, so much. But let's talk about scouting again and how scouting really got me there. What is the value of scouting? There is lots of ways to slice this. And it kind of, in a big way, it depends on who you're talking to, though. When you're talking to the Scouts, to them, it's all about fun, friends, and adventure. That's absolutely what drew me into scouting, with my buddies pictured here. And my memories, my favorite memories of scouting, it was true back then. And it's still true today with the Scouts today. They get in it to have fun adventures with friends, gives them some bragging rights, and and that pulls them in, that binds them together. It was true then, and it's still true today, many decades later, as these are still some of my best friends in life, really. But make no mistake, Scouting really is a serious program which changes lives. Now, the popular image, of course we all know that, that's the nerdy kid in geeky uniforms running around the woods with pocket knives, compasses, or burning sticks. Okay, guilty as charged, although we really discourage the waving of burning sticks. Simply put, I believe Scouting is the #1 leadership and character development program for youth in our nation. This is not to imply there's not significant benefits from other activities, other programs, but Scouting develops the whole person and prepares them to take their place in the adult world. Boy Scouts of America defines our mission as to prepare young people to make ethical and moral choices over their lifetimes by instilling in them the values of the Scout Oath and Scout Law. Those Scout Oath and Scout Law are internalized through years of recitation and practice with our young people. The Scout Oath: on my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to guide my country, to obey the Scout Law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. The Scout Law simply states the 12 ideal characteristics of a Scout. This isn't just at Scout meetings, but also at home, in school, in the neighborhood, in life. A Scout this is who they are. They are trustworthy and loyal and helpful and friendly and courteous and kind and obedient and cheerful and thrifty and brave and clean and reverent. This expression of shared values is both profound and transformational. These are the values which form the bedrock of our society and our nation. So, why is Scouting important? Why do we need Scouting today? To answer that question, all you have to do is turn on the evening news. Simply put, our country is crying out for leaders of integrity. Leaders who live their values and do the right thing even when it hurts. Leaders who understand the meaning of words like duty, honor, and trustworthy. I know for a fact Scouting changes lives. About 20% of the youth that I served as Scoutmaster had no dads in their lives. Over the years, I've made numerous visits to their homes to talk about school, girls, how to handle bullies, and even taught one how to ride a bicycle because he didn't have a dad there to run along to help steady him and encourage him. We're with them for the celebrations of life, to help each other and to help each other through the tragedies and setbacks. We get them into the troop as a 5th grader, and we send them off to college. Today, some of my Scouts are doing amazing things. One is an AC-130 gunship pilot. He called me from Iraq a few Christmases ago. He had over 50 combat missions under his belt and was scared about the enemy fire he faced every time he crossed the border. But he did his job. He made an impact, and he got his crew home safely. One is an Army Black Hawk pilot, supported by his Eagle Scout brother in the infantry. Numerous are engineers. One just finished his PhD in nuclear engineering. I certainly didn't see that one coming. Another finished up his electrical engineering in Qatar last semester. At his Eagle ceremony 5 years ago, he broke down in tears on the podium and called me the father he didn't have. One is in my former Air Force job conducting classified flight tests in the Nevada desert on the next generation of aircraft and weapons. 2 are in medical school, and 3 are already practicing doctors. 1 is in law school, and 2 are practicing lawyers. 1 completed 3 combat tours in Afghanistan, where he said he learned everything he needed to know about interrogation from me, and he's now back in college. I could go on and on. One of my Eagle sons spent 27 months changing lives in the West Africa country of Benin as a Peace Corps volunteer, and he's now back in graduate school. My oldest son spent 5 years overseas and 2 combat tours as a Strike Eagle pilot, fighter pilot, serving the Air Force. We're glad to have him back in the United States a few months ago. These guys, every one of them, they went through their phase of running through the woods with those burning sticks. But they've grown up, and they've moved on to serve our nation in very serious ways. I believe in this program. That's why I find time in my busy professional life to support it. Scouting changes lives. I say without jest, it probably saved mine. I grew up in a tough neighborhood in South Texas. A few years ago, the house next door to the one we grew up in was the scene of a hostage situation and a major drug bust. I guess it was really no surprise. When we were kids, my brother Terry stumbled into a drug deal in the alley directly behind our house and found himself staring down the barrel of an assault rifle. I was shot at twice and knifed once before I turned 13. I knew where to find trouble, and trouble knew where to find me. Fortunately for me, scouting gave me a positive outlet for adventure and challenges. I have a theory. I believe young men need a certain amount of adrenaline in their lives. They can get that adrenaline by causing trouble and running from the police. Or they can get it rappelling from a tower or shooting rapids in a canoe using skills they first learned at Camp Easton. I confess to having done some of both. Scouting offered me positive, healthy challenges which took every ounce of my strength and courage to overcome. Scouting taught me the fundamentals of leadership, which I built upon in my 30-year Air Force career and which I used daily as the commander of the International Space Station during my 6-month, really high adventure trip. I do my best to uphold those character values in my professional life now. Scouting gave me friends for life. Scouting taught me I can strive for excellence, as exemplified by the quest to attain the rank of Eagle. And later I realized that that was just the first of many monumental challenges that I would face and could handle on life's trail. Scouting taught me to serve others, and I learned I could influence my community for the better. And most importantly, Scouting gave me the chance to learn and grow under the influence of dedicated adult Scout leaders. In spite of my strong belief in the Scouting program today, at one time my future, and I believe my life, my fate, hung in the balance. Shortly after joining a Boy Scout troop, I encountered problems and dropped out. I was a belligerent kid, and my parents didn't have the energy to turn me around, but one of my adult leaders, Mickey Allen, wouldn't let me go. He'd come looking for me in the neighborhood and at the community pool at the end of his street. He'd come back and try to talk me into giving Scouting another try. I found out years later when I wasn't home, he saw me at the pool, he would go to my house and talk to my parents about how much Mike needed to be in Scouting. After months of badgering, I finally gave in and said, okay, I'll go give it another try. Thanks to Mr. Allen's intercessions, the atmosphere in my troop had changed. The bullies had been shown the door, and I started to have the kind of fun and adventures that every boy really yearns to have. And I thrived. Because of the love and persistence of one leader, I stayed in Scouting, and a series of events follows. My 2 younger brothers joined Scouts, and we all earned the rank of Eagle. We all went on to lead Scout troops in our communities and raise our own Eagle sons, and also positively influence the lives of countless other young men at critical times in their lives. I can never repay Mickey Allen, Tom Hofstadler, Bob Helbing, or any of the other close friends and dedicated men and women who kept me on the path for life. All I can do now is do the best I am able with the time, talents, and energy I have to pay it forward so the next generation of young people can benefit from the promise of Scouting. So that's my story. How a kid from South Texas on the precipice of trouble could go from dodging bullets to serving as the commander of the International Space Station. My story is not unique and not merely ancient history. There are young people right here in the area served by the Inland Northwest Council who face the same challenges and who are finding renewed hope and opportunity to take the path to become leaders for our community and our great nation. Your commitment and support to this program is making a profound difference for the better. It takes a lot of time from dedicated volunteers who are willing to love, lead, and support the youth in our program. It also takes a significant financial commitment to help provide those same opportunities for those who can't afford the price of uniforms and summer camps, as well as the financial support to run our camps and other special programs. The time and money you invest in Scouting is a direct investment in our future. By this, I mean the future of our state and our nation, which built upon the timeless yet increasingly rare values exemplified by the Scouting program. I also mean the future of your business, because Scouts are the kind of people you can trust and you want to hire them to work for you. Now, more than ever, we need a strong Scouting program to serve our community. From the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Wow. Oh, wow. Thank you so very much, Colonel Fossum. I can't say thank you much enough for all of the time that you spent to record this for us and make this happen for us and to be part of the Scouting family here in the Inland Northwest. Here's a man who walked among the stars, and yet the most important uniform he wore in his life was his Scout uniform. We so greatly appreciate the gift of your time and your remarks to your extended Scouting family here in the Pacific Northwest. We mentioned Michael flew twice aboard the Space Shuttle Discovery. That spacecraft is now on display at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. Next time you find yourself near our nation's capital, you can go and see Michael's spacecraft there on display. Well, Michael said it, folks. Now more than ever, we need to support this fantastic organization getting children out of the home into the outdoors, experiencing and learning new things, exploring their future through the Merit Badge program Scouting provides. We had a special in to help us arrange our evening with an astronaut tonight. Michael Fossum's brother is Terry Fossum. Well, Terry is a Scoutmaster here in the Inland Northwest Council. Terry wears his uniform proudly as well. In a normal year, I would say his enthusiasm for Scouting is contagious, but this year, let's just say his enthusiasm for Scouting is just what we need. Scouting also needs you. Terry, would you please remind us how important our Friends of Scouting are tonight?
Well, thank you so much, Tom. And thank you, Mike. That was amazing. You know, Scouting really is a fantastic program, isn't it? I mean, as a Scoutmaster, I watched it change kids' lives. Some of them with backgrounds that you wouldn't expect them to come out of. But they did, because they had the positive influence of Scouting. They had the Scout Oath and the Scout Law. You know, Scouting's all about making boys and girls turn into honorable men and women. And we need more honorable men and women in the world, don't we? Well, that's what we're doing. But we have a problem, and we need to talk about it. Let me be really upfront with you. COVID has completely killed our budget to the tune of 6 figures. Now, without the money, we can't have a program. We're doing everything we can to keep the staff on board and to keep our camps open. In fact, the staff is working so hard. They were one of the only summer camps in scouting that was open this year. But they weren't as open as we need to be, both for the kids and also for the income that provides. Some of our other fundraising events were also hampered because of COVID. And that brings us to today, and that brings us to you and me. It's up to us to provide that. I need your help. Now, if you've never given to scouting before, I'm going to ask you to give right now, to text to that number and donate. If you've given before, like I have, I'm going to ask you to consider giving more. Help these guys through this time. I'll tell you that I am. I'm giving 2 to 3 times more than I ever have in the past, and that's saying something. Why? Because there's kids right here in the inland Northwest that won't get scouting if we don't step up. You know, JFK once said, one person can make a difference, and every person should try. Well, this is our chance. This is our chance to make a difference in the lives of kids we may never even meet, that may never know we exist, but their lives will be changed forever because we kept scouting going. So please text to that number. Please help these guys out. Help the kids out. Help out the future of our area. Thank you so much. Now back to you.
Wow, Terry, thank you. Thank you very much for bringing your brother in tonight to do a fantastic presentation and for your generous support in scouting as well. Terry just sent in a donation for $1,000. Thank you, Terry. And remember, text to give. Text 129633 to 1-855-575-7888. Guys, now more than ever, we need your support. Please, if you haven't already donated, please consider a donation today. Tom, I want to thank you. Thank you very much for coming today, being our MC, and bringing fun and excitement back to scouting. And I'm sure we brought you back to scouting a bit tonight as well.
You sure did, and this has been my pleasure, Marcia, and I trust it's clear you did all the work planning tonight's program. Cheers to you. While you stayed here on Earth, your great work is, as they say in space, out of this world. Yes. Thank you very much to all that made tonight possible, and a special thank you to Colonel Michael Fossum. Our deep appreciation goes to those who support scouting through donations or of time. Scouting has made a difference in the lives of our youth for over 100 years, and the world hasn't stopped needing it. Let's keep it going, shall we?
Thank you for helping us be closer to meeting our mission. Our fund drive goes on through the end of December. Consider a gift to scouting for that person for the holiday, or make a donation this evening if it's at all feasible.
This is where we might say have a safe trip home, but you're probably already there, so we'll just say thank you for the support for local businesses. Scouting would not happen in the Inland Northwest Council without you.
And if you're not a member of Scouting, check it out. If you weren't able to support the council tonight with a donation, please consider doing it when you can.
Thank you again, and on behalf of the Merit Badger and the Scouting program in the Inland Northwest, thank you.
And thank you to Hamilton Studios for everything you've done to make this evening possible.
Good night.
Good night.
On my honor.
On my honor.
On my honor, I will do my best
to do my duty.
To do duty
for the country. To God and my country.
To obey the Scout Law.
To help other people at all times.
To keep myself physically strong,
mentally awake, and morally straight.
Thank you.